All right, guys, we are now on Mod 6, Lesson 8. Today we are going to be working within a place value chart to move things back and forth between tenths and hundredths. And this is exactly very similar to what we did when we were moving within a place value chart in the whole numbers, but we're going to be moving backwards. Now, the first one, number 2, shows me 2 ones, and it wants you to equal tenths. So we would draw 2 ones. Now we have to move it to the tenths. Now, just like we did when we were grouping and moving within our place value chart and our whole numbers, we don't have enough to group here. So we need to turn them in, move them backwards into my tenths position. Well, we know that each one of these, when we move within a place value chart, is worth 10. So if I'm going to move that there, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Move this one back. So 2 ones is equal to 20 tenths. Okay? Now if I have 2 tenths and I need to move it into my hundredths position, same thing. I'm going to move them. We know when we move, they're worth 10. So 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 20 hundredths. Okay? Now let's move down here to number 3A. 1 equals how many tenths? Well, we know when we move backwards that it is worth 10 tenths. 1.7, well, we know we're going to move this behind, which gives us 10. So that would equal 17 tenths. Now, if we're changing this backwards, we're changing all 10 in. So we would have moved 10, so you would have 107 tenths. So remember, we're just moving those 10 back, and 10 times 10 would be your 100. So you have 100 plus 7 would be 107. Okay? So now if we're moving 1 into the hundredths spot, remember we have to move it 2 from the tenths to the hundredths. So this would be 100 hundredths. If you're moving your 1.7, you would be moving it 2 decimal points. So that would be 170 hundredths. And if you're moving 10.7, you're also adding your 2 decimal point or your 2 place value charts behind it. So you would have 1070 hundredths. Guys, really what you're realizing is that you're adding on that group of 10. So you're moving that back 10. Okay? That's what we need to realize, is that any movement is movements of groups of 10 or times 10. So for example, let's go down just a little bit further where we have a decimal and it says 2.1. And they want us to write it as a mixed number. Well, my whole number is 2. And a mixed number is a whole number with a fraction. The 1 is in the tenths position. So I would say 2 and 1 tenth. Okay, so that makes sense, yes? Now we need to get to the tenths position, tenths. And in order to do that, we are going to add our whole number to our decimal. So we are actually going to be timesing 10 because we're moving it back behind the decimal. So you would have 21 tenths. Okay? Now, if I need to move it to the hundredths position, I have to move this back so that I am moving my tenths back to hundredths and my ones back to the hundredths. So I would have 210 over 100. And remember, this is all times 10 and movement within the place value chart. So you would move everything back times 10. So you could show this as a drawing if you would like to. If you are going down to 4.2, they want you to write that as a mixed number. Again, guys, a mixed number is a whole number and a fraction. So my whole number is 4. and I have 2 tenths, so I would write 4 and 2 over 10. Now if I'm moving it to the tenths position, I would have 42 tenths, so 42 over 100, or over 10, I apologize, we're in the tenths position. And if we are moving it all the way over to the hundredths position, again, I need to move this back to 2 decimal points and move the 2 back 2 decimal points. So I would have 420 over 100. So please continue to work on your problem set. If you have any questions, reach out to your teacher.